entirely new housing industry, one that will create tens of thousands of careers up and down the housing supply chain, an industry that can help sustain tens of thousands of jobs in our BC forestry industry, all while reducing our reliance on the United States. We can give ourselves more than any foreign government, including the United States, can ever take away. Nous pouvons accomplir des choses qui, dans le passé, auraient semblé impossibles, à une vitesse sans précédent. Nous pouvons bâtir ici chez nous, comme nous l'avons fait dans le passé. We can build things in this country again. We can ensure that if you work hard, you will be able to afford a good life. We can create secure careers, a strong economy, affordable homes. Nous allons non seulement protéger les travailleurs de l'industrie forestière, nous allons bâtir une industrie forestière plus forte que jamais. Une industrie qui va créer de bons emplois et de la richesse pour les générations à venir, ici en Colombie-Britannique, au Québec et à partout au pays. That independent future for our country, stronger than ever. We can build Canada strong. Thank you, merci, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Prime Minister. We'll do 15 minutes of question with our media delegation and turn over to locals. CBC.
Hello, Karina Roman, CBC News. When the Liberals have won government, most times it's without needing to do well in the West. You're in the West, you're headed to Calgary,
Yep.
You're here making your pitch to voters in the West. How do you convince them that you care about their issues if the West isn't key for the Liberals in terms of a path to victory?
Well, you know, let me say a couple of things. First, I'm not a career politician. I'm a pragmatist. I'm here to get things done. I'm here to address a series of crises. The crisis, first and foremost, with the United States, the crisis in housing, the cost of living crisis. And I'm bringing that perspective. I am asking for, through the Liberal Party, for the support of all Canadians to serve all Canadians for those crises. I happen to be from the West. I have deep ties to Alberta, where I grew up, ties to the territories where I was born, and ties to BC, where my family, my mother and my sister now live. I know the West, and I think I have a good sense, buttressed by our candidates here in British Columbia, of what's required. And the last point, and I'll hand back, is that the scale of what we're announcing today, the scale and the degree to which what we're announcing spreads across the needs of the West, the needs, and I'll speak specifically to British Columbia. A cutting-edge industry, as represented by this company. A huge challenge for our people in housing. Integrating all of the solutions back into the core that help build British Columbia, our forestry industry, and solving multiple problems at the same time, providing a better life for people in the West and across Canada. That's the approach we'll take. And that's why we're here asking for the support of voters in British Columbia and across the West. Thank you.
En français.
En français, j'ai grandi en Alberta. Ma famille habite en Colombie-Britannique. Je suis né au territoire nord-ouest. Mais je ne suis pas un politicien de carrière. Je suis pragmatiste. Et je travaille pour tous les Canadiens et Canadiennes, y compris évidemment des citoyens, des concitoyennes de l'Ouest du Canada. Et cette annonce aujourd'hui indique l'approche, la stratégie du Parti libéral. On trouve des solutions, des grandes solutions pour les problèmes les plus sévères pour les gens qui habitent ici. La crise de logement, c'est-à-dire la crise de logement, avec une stratégie qui crée une nouvelle industrie ici, en Colombie-Britannique, y compris le secteur forestier. Okay?
And for a follow-up, do you worry that making jokes about Premier Daniel Smith will contribute to Western alienation?
it was a lighthearted comment. I have a lot of respect for the Premier. We've worked together, including on the agreement at First Ministers, the unanimous agreement on First Ministers of having one Canadian economy as opposed to 13, developing new trade and energy corridors. I refer to our meeting in Ottawa of 2.5 weeks ago. There was a lot of opportunity for Alberta, for Canada, and my government will spare no effort to make sure that the people of Alberta, the people of Canada realize those opportunities. Thank you.
No.
Next question.
Okay.
Hi, Mr. Carney. Abigail Beeman, CTV News. On tax havens in relation to Brookfield, you've said that you know how the world works. Should Canadians infer from that you wouldn't condemn the use of tax havens? I have a long career in the private sector. I have a longer career in the public sector. What's important is that we have a effective tax system, and that every company follows the rules of those tax to not just the letter but the spirit of those regulations. And we need to continue to refine our tax system to ensure that companies are paying their fair share of tax. And my government will also ensure that the federal government is spending only those dollars that are necessary. So one of the core elements of our strategy is to spend less as a federal government so that Canada can invest more. And I'll finish on this point, which is we want to make sure that scarce federal dollars, taxpayers' dollars, catalyze enormous private investment. And so the scale of what we're looking to do in the housing sector is indicative of that. Scarce dollars, massive private investment. I'd also like to ask you to respond to Mr. Poilievre's rallies. He's attracting thousands of people who are motivated in a way we haven't seen in quite a while. A lot of them don't like you. If you were to win, how would you address that segment of the population? I
think the first is to recognize that as a government, you serve all Canadians. That's fundamental. It goes to the previous question with respect to the West. It goes to your question. I am not running to be a MP for a segment of Nepean, which is the constituency, the riding in which I'm running. I'm not running for a segment. I'm running to represent all the people of Nepean. With my Liberal colleagues, they are doing the same. But if we form government, if Canadians give us that trust, we then serve all Canadians equally. It's a sacred honor to be bestowed on individuals, and one I take exceptionally seriously. Thank you. En ce qui concerne, je suis comme étant député pour Nepean, si ce sera la décision des électeurs, je serai le membre pour toutes les concitoyennes de Nepean. Pas seulement des gens qui ont voté pour le Parti libéral. C'est le même pour tous les députés, tous les candidats. Et étant gouvernement, on sert tous les Canadiens et Canadiennes. Et ça, c'est une responsabilité fondamentale de notre système. Madame.
Kat Tunney from CBC. The Site Election Task Force is reporting a PRC-linked campaign that focused on you and your campaign. Can you share anything more about what you were briefed on, and are you comfortable with that support?
Well, a couple of things I'll say. So one of the steps I took as Prime Minister was to review the measures to ensure electoral integrity, to fight against foreign interference. And so some of that is just briefing on specific situations, which obviously I can't share. But I approved some structural changes, which included that the site task force publicly report any incidents that they became aware of in real time. So as you would know, but maybe others don't, this is the third public report they've made. So I felt it important that there was that transparency. and that transparency will continue. I note that the critical evaluation panel, I believe it's called, that is associated with the site task force, makes their judgment about the seriousness or not of these incidents, and that in their judgment that this does not affect the ability of the country to conduct a free and fair election. But I fundamentally think that what's important is Canadians get that transparency in real time, and I think it's been a welcome development for Canadians, but also a warning to foreign actors that we are on top of these things.
From my understanding, some of the campaign was pushing positive narratives about you. Why do you think that China, the PRC, seems to like you? Why are they praising you?
I have absolutely no idea, and I have absolutely no idea, and I think I'll leave it at that.
Catherine Lévesque, National Post. Good morning.
Good morning.
Former Prime Minister Stephen Harper had lots of things to say about you yesterday. One of them being that he worked with yourself and Pierre Poilievre, and he would prefer Mr. Poilievre over you. Would you like to respond to that? And why did you refuse to become his finance minister?
Okay, packed a lot in there. Look, Stephen Harper appointed me governor of the Bank of Canada. I worked closely with the late and great Jim Flaherty during the financial crisis. We resolved a number of situations. Many people are familiar with that experience. I note that Pierre Poilievre was not at any of those tables, was not given any of that responsibilities, and note further that in subsequent years he has not gained any responsibility in managing crises or difficult situations. So I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
En français, s'il vous plaît.
En français, j'ai travaillé pendant la période de la crise financière mondiale dans une étroite collaboration avec M. Flaherty. Il était exceptionnel comme ministre des Finances. Et je note qu'autour de la table, M. Poilievre n'était pas là. Jamais n'était pas là. Il n'a aucune expérience de gérer des crises, de bâtir une économie forte à ce moment-là et pas après.
Why did you refuse to become Stephen Harper's finance minister? Just want to clarify.
You just want look.
You said it yourself.
I didn't think it was appropriate to move from my position into that role.
Une dernière question.
Bonjour, M. Carney, Christian Noël de Radio-Canada. Il y a des migrants haïtiens en ce moment qui fuient les États-Unis pour rentrer au Canada de façon irrégulière parce qu'ils fuient Donald Trump. Est-ce qu'on doit les renvoyer ou les accueillir?
Premièrement, je reconnais la forte accroissement des demandeurs d'asile qui viennent des États-Unis. Nous avons un accord du pays sûr, en effet, avec les États-Unis. Et c'est dans cet accord, on peut les renvoyer aux États-Unis. Selon moi, ça c'est approprié, ça reste approprié. Ouais.
Contrairement donc à ce que M. Trudeau faisait, qui lui disait « Venez au Canada, nous allons vous... » Contrairement à ce que M. Trudeau disait, lui disait « Venez les accueillir, vous êtes prêts à vous... »
Oui, la situation aux États-Unis a bien changé. Parce qu'il existe maintenant la possibilité d'une vague des demandeurs d'asile. Et il faut travailler, il faut que le Canada et les États-Unis travaillent dans une plus étroite collaboration afin de gérer cette situation. C'est pas acceptable que les États-Unis nous donnent tous leurs demandeurs d'asile, en effet. Alors, la situation a bien changé maintenant. OK? Merci.
All right, we'll go over to locals.
Phil Melnichuk, Delta Optimist newspaper. I'm just wondering, after the meeting with Premier Eby yesterday, if you have any further details to share on support for softwood lumber, National Transportation Corridor, and in particular, the funding for the Fraser River Tunnel?
First off, I want to thank Premier Eby for the meeting yesterday. It was very constructive. We talked at great length in terms of Canada's strategy and with respect to U.S. tariffs and with respect to softwood lumber. As you may know, the tariffs announced, proposed tariffs announced by the U.S. Trade Representative a couple of days ago would take effect in August. So we have a bit of time to put the full strategy in place, although we watched the whole thing. So we had discussion around that. We had discussion around the $20 million fund for the competitiveness that the federal government has put, that I'm proposing the federal government would put forward, and how we'd work on that. We talked about today's announcements and how that works to supply big support for demand here in the BC forest sector, and as well how we could integrate that with other housing measures. So all of that is, so we had quite a comprehensive discussion. On with respect to the Fraser River Tunnel, I would say this: we have put in place, or we have proposed during the election campaign, a $5 billion fund for trade infrastructure, trade and commercial infrastructure, and it would be, I fully understand the pressing need for progress here. You can just see it this morning driving here, but I understand it on a deeper technical level. So we're putting in place the tools. I expect to have very strong and productive cooperation with Premier Eby's government on this and other areas. Thank you.
Next question.
Good morning, Thomas Steele from Bloomberg News. Trump's so-called reciprocal tariffs come into effect tomorrow, and it seems like there's a bit of a queue now forming to negotiate with his administration, Japan, etc. They want to cut bilateral deals. So is there some pressure to get talks going now rather than waiting a month until the election is over?
Well, the first thing I'd say is that President Trump and I, in advance of the reciprocal tariffs, agreed that we would have a comprehensive negotiation after the election, which, as you know, is in less than 3 weeks' time, literally, potentially starting the day after the election. So the Prime Minister at that point, which I'm working very hard to earn the vote so that it would be me, but would begin those negotiations with the President. So that's the situation. I think we have to be realistic that during an election period, we have the ability, we ensured that we had the ability to respond to counter tariffs, but that is different than negotiating any element of a new agreement during what is a caretaker period of the government. Thank you.
Next question.
Hi, Jared Yeager here with the Western Standard. So yesterday at your rally, you said Pierre Poilievre's plan is to, quote, divide and be conquered. As of now, Canada is reliant on the U.S. to get our own oil from one side of the country to the other. By not repealing Bill C-69 and allowing Quebec to veto a pipeline across Canada, are you not yourself setting up Canada to be divided and conquered?
Absolutely not. In fact, in the premise of your question, you answer it, which is, if we are going to build, and I am a proponent of building big energy infrastructure in this country, but if we are going to build big energy infrastructure in this country, there is a we in that. It is not imposed. It is not imposed by the federal government. It's not imposed by an opposition politician. It's not imposed by a company. It requires the support of, in the example you gave, in Energy East of Quebec, the other provinces that are affected. It requires the support, the free, prior, and informed consent of First Nations. So that's the exact opposite, which is that coming together to build. Now, what I've proposed, both at First Minister's level and more broadly, is that we as a country use this crisis to identify those projects of national interest, many of which, not all of which, but many of which are energy infrastructure projects, so that we can get those agreements, so that we can come together and we can accelerate. And last point, with respect to C-69, what I've also been clear about is the ability under C-69, not as it was, but as it is, and the Minister of Natural Resources, Mr. Wilkinson, is here, as it is under his leadership, we have an ability to rely on, as appropriate, impact assessments that are performed at different levels of government. And that is part and parcel of how we can make this work. So I reject the question, but I hope I've provided some illumination. Thank you.
We'll take one last question.
Bonjour, M. Carney. Michel
Bonjour.
Sabat pour la presse canadienne. À peine un peu plus du tiers de vos candidats sont des femmes. Pourquoi avez-vous choisi de ne pas vous placer dans la zone paritaire?
Encore une fois, c'est...
Il y a à peine un peu plus du tiers de vos...
OK.
D'accord?
OK.
Donc,
À peu
pourquoi est-ce que
près,
vous avez choisi de ne pas vous placer dans cette zone paritaire environ moitié-moitié?
OK, les chiffres sont les chiffres, mais je suis dédié à d'avoir, par exemple, une cabinet équilibré pendant le mandat d'un gouvernement, par exemple. Et puis, à ce moment-ci, dans le Canada, il y en a 23 personnes, 23 ministres et 11 femmes. Alors, on va l'équilibrer si nous serons élus. On va l'équilibrer pendant le mandat. Mais merci pour votre question. Okay?
Thank you. This is what concludes today's press conference.
Thank you.